just like that, the clarity of the picture that has been shown to us for quite a bit of time now starts to reveal itself. We start to see the connection between all of these characters and how they're slowly coming together, and how this chapter orchestrates all of them to be in a perfect position for what's to come. How they are collectively grouping together to push forward to the ending of the story and to oppose Eren in some way, shape or form. We don't necessarily know the legitimacy of their plan and what they actually plan to do, but we know they have something in motion. They have an idea, they have a concept, whatever it may be, and they're willing to ride on it in a very concretely way, in a very forceful way. They seem very determined to push with this option, and they know they need a lot of people. They know they need a lot of power, and that's exactly what this chapter showcases for us. Even with all of these characters being orchestrated in a way that slowly come together and start to work with one another, there was definitely a lot of emotion behind it. And I love the way Isayama split that up within this entirety of a chapter. Each section of character that we get has this half-sliced emotion kind of put into there as well. It lets you understand their point of view a little bit more. It lets you understand their choice and why they want to work with someone or why they don't want to work with someone. How they feel towards the entirety of the situation. Originally, I thought Armin was going to be more of a center focus for bringing this group together. He still kind of is, but the focus towards him isn't as prominent. Yet still he is in the core of it and everyone's somewhat revolving around him. Even though his choice within this chapter was rather interesting, which I'll get onto in a little bit. I really love the opening of this chapter. With the flashback of Hanji and Levi, we finally get to see where Levi's mind is at, what he thinks about the entirety of this situation, what Hanji thinks of this situation, and the conversation that they had between each other was honestly really refreshing. Hanji has always been like this really back and forth but extremely intelligent character, and she somewhat doesn't buckle under the pressure, but she wears the pressure of the situation extremely well. You can tell that she's extremely nervous or anxious or something along those lines, but it doesn't stop her from doing what she does best, which is formulating a plan and coming up with counter opportunities and counter actions. However, we get something that's a little bit melodic for her, something that's a lot slower and timid, and she's somewhat recollecting her thoughts and speaking to herself in the vicinity of Levi. So she's speaking to Levi just while he's knocked out, basically. This was a really touching moment, very small and simple, but very important for Hanji, just that little bit to spark her character back into life and back into the story and give her that emotional connection to her, that even she wants to avoid all of this completely, questioning the fact that if her and Levi could live out their life within this forest. Obviously that gets interrupted rather quickly by Levi, and his mindset is pretty one track at the moment. He's still very perceptive of the whole situation, he understands his injuries, but this is the thing that I've been saying for quite a bit of time, is that if Isayama is going to use Levi in some way, shape or form, the only thing that I can think of is by using him for power, using him as an anomaly of power that we don't necessarily know how strong he's going to be. If he was brought back into the story just to play a dying person, I wouldn't necessarily see the point, and I think would be a waste of his character if he just set out the entirety of the finale of the story. But now that he's back up, recollecting his thoughts and understanding the situation, he seems extremely determined to kill Zeke. And obviously this was something that we all seen coming, we just didn't know if he would be able to do it with the injuries that he has. Clear factor when it comes to Levi is that if he has this objective in his mind, right, if he's so determined on going down this path, we can usually 100% hold him to his words. This means that he's kind of reflected over his injuries to a certain extent and realized that with the capabilities that he has now, he can still kill Zeke. Even though he doesn't know the entirety of the situation of what's going on, he's still confident that he's powerful enough to do so, which gives us as readers a lot of faith with him. I don't know how he would handle going up against Eren. I don't know what he would do against other people, but at least when it comes to Zeke, he is extremely determined to kill him. And this creates a very big powerhouse that this group has now got. Levi and Hanji are extremely dangerous, and for good reason. Hanji being the person in the previous chapter to negotiate with the Card Titan and with the General. So getting on their side, understanding their point of view, and seeing that they want to stop Eren, there is a common connection. There's a common ground that they both stand on, that they want to stop Eren from doing what he's doing. Even the Card Titan and the General know that for something to happen, for something of any sort of value to shake this whole situation up, combining power and combining efforts is the only thing that's going to be possible. There's really not a lot of Malian people in Paradise right now. The only two that are obviously going to help all of this is the Card Titan and the General. and the usage that they have, which is very clear in this chapter, the amount that the Car Titan is actually used. So the more we stockpile Titans, the more powerful they actually get. And by the end of the chapter, we have a handful of Titans. We have Levi, we have Hanji, and a couple of decently powerful characters in there. They're a threat, a very massive one. Once again, talking about the slight bit of emotion that was brought into this chapter, the Connie situation was always great. I was really interested to see how this would come to a conclusion, whether Connie would be killed or if Gabby would come into the picture and convince him otherwise, but Connie has always been an extremely flip-floppy but also very emotional as a character, and I didn't see him going all too far, at least in the terms of living. I thought he was actually going to die in the upcoming chapters. I think a lot of people did, but surprisingly, he manages to get a second chance, which I think is actually pretty good. It throws in this spanner into the whole situation, kind of refortifies Connie's mental state, as he's completely lost throughout all of it. He's questioning himself, he's questioning Falco, does he still want to do this? And by the time him and Falco get to the location of Connie's mother, as she's a Titan kind of stuck in this broken house, you can see that him lying to Falco is taking its toll. The amount of pressure, the amount of anxiety that Connie has is overwhelming. Like, even he doesn't really want to do this, yet he really wants his mother back, and it gives this very tragic but personal experience with Connie, that out of everything that has happened, the only thing that he wants is to have his mother back, and that he's willing to sacrifice this child that he doesn't even know, but is still difficult for him to do wholeheartedly, that he has to trick and deceive him into supposedly cleaning the Titan's teeth. It's extremely overwhelming, and I actually enjoyed it rather heavily. The one thing that I found was rather odd is how quick Connie made a decision to not want to do what he was doing. But ultimately, looking back, I think that falls on his mental fortitude being very cracked and flip-floppy with his emotion, as if he's given not necessarily a better option, but a morally better option, he'll tend to lean into that direction, even though the morally better option was not killing Falco. But when Armin comes into the picture and offers himself up to be the one eaten by Connie's mother, that's when Connie decides that it's not a good thing and kind of reevaluates the entirety of the situation. It took Armin to do that. Even then, it shifts onto Armin's perspective and the emotion behind it. In that split moment when Armin and Gabby caught up to Connie, Armin reflects on what Commander Erwin would do. He puts himself in this sacrificial role, and Armin dives straight into the mouth, realistically didn't even hesitate, and was willing to do this to save Falco. You can somewhat look at this at two different angles. One, this is a massive jump in Armin's perception of himself, and then the more that he reflects on Commander Erwin, the more vicious and determined he becomes, sacrificing himself. As somewhat weird as it may seem for Armin as a character, as you may pen that as him giving up or something along those lines, in reality he's done something that Commander Erwin would probably embody himself, if not already has, that he would die for his people. The second part is that even though he's somewhat trying to embody Commander Erwin's actions and emotions, realistically Armin killing himself to Connie's mother is probably the worst and least intelligent option to begin with. So even though what Armin done was emotionally really good, wanting to sacrifice himself to save Falco for the betterment of Falco, the intelligent side of it and the future of Paradis and even Eren and Eldia and whatever it may be, the rest of the world even, was somewhat thrown at the window, as bringing back Connie's mother would do nothing along those lines. Third option, however, there is that Armin seen all of that and knew that even if he tried to sacrifice himself, Connie would save him, which is more of the big brain play, which is never actually showcased in that type of sense, because Armin was somewhat emotional about it. It wasn't just cold-faced. If he was cold-faced about it, if he showed no emotion whatsoever, I would argue that would have been his plan, that he knew that Connie would save him. But because he was somewhat hesitant, it makes me believe that he was willing to actually kill himself, which is both emotionally smart but also intelligently dumb, if that makes any sort of sense. I thought it was nice though. It shows a lot of drive for Armin to push himself forward and to give his life to the people that mean a lot to him, or for the betterment of people. He hardly knows Falco, yet he was willing to give his life, which makes Armin a pretty scary character. I've been saying it for a very long time, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily like Armin, but he has that sacrificial play where he'll do the right by people he doesn't know, and that's something we need within the world of Attack on Titan. That's something we need in the world of this story right now, and that is why he's scary, because he'll push for an option that bears people, not governments, not power, but people, and he's willing to sacrifice himself for it. Connie also got that nice little tailored off bit for himself as a character. Falco and Gabby reunite, and they join as a collective. There's like a nice little section with Mikasa and a previous person that she had a bit of connection with. She managed to get her scarf back, so Mikasa is ever so slowly getting these more personal bits and pieces for her. I love how Isayama is slowly trickling these in, however, because I know a lot of people have seen Mikasa as a character that hasn't really done anything other than just being powerful. Yet, ever so slightly, we're building more and more of a picture for her. And this chapter pretty much kicks all of that off. With her redeeming the scarf that Eren gave her so many years ago, she's coming to the point of identifying her own emotion, identifying what she wants, who she is, what she's going to do, and that she's thinking for herself. I'd say this is a big stepping stone for Mikasa, and I'm hoping Isayama starts to trickle these in a little bit more so it gives her a little bit more oomph as a character, so people can finally realize that there's a lot more to her than just being Eren's sidekick or the powerhouse or something along those lines, which there's definitely beauty within her as a character, but it's just not standalone-ish as other characters would be. The beauty of her character comes with connecting with others and how she uplifts others before even herself, which is a very benevolent thing in a lot of different ways, but she is a very supportive character. But now that she's getting some more personal things, hopefully she starts to expand a lot more on her own and spread out her wings a little bit more. From here, there was this really cute interaction with Armin's now collective, which is Gabby, Falco, and Connie, and they actually managed to meet up with Annie. Even though this chapter has a lot of high points within it and it was rather stressful at times, this beautiful little break in all of that was honestly great, as you don't necessarily see it coming. As they're traveling back together, they sit at this table to eat some food and they look to their right. Funny enough, while they're talking about her on that, oh, Annie's back, she's out of her crystal, they look over and they see her stuffing her face. And her face is legitimately priceless. A very simple thing, but a very beautiful break in the intensity and the atmospheric moments within this chapter. Helps you breathe just a little bit on the normality of this moment with the severity of everything that's going on surrounding them. There's a poor little moment with Hitch as she comes back with this pie and Annie's no longer there, and there's a nice little letter for her, so she gets left on her own as Annie joins the collective with Armin and everyone else. From this, we see a complete shift in politics, and this is something that we've been leading up to for quite a bit now, and how the Jaegerists are slowly taking control. They are somewhat bread and butter of the entirety of Paradis right now. They are leading this charge, they are leading this direction for the common people and trying to bring them under the umbrella of Eren Yeager. The person leading this is Flock, however, and he's very determined, almost desperate in a lot of different ways, and I think this reflects a lot of things that Marley does. I think this reflects a lot of bad notations that the politics can corrupt so many people, and with how desperate Flock is to convince people by killing Yelena and Anya, who were both in support of Zeke's plan personally, you get to see the crowd and how they conform to this whole idea of Jaegerist, and how Flock is painting this very beautiful picture of freedom and the world being absolutely annihilated, but because we are alive, we are free. In a sense, it's somewhat true, but it's definitely idolizing Eren in a wrong way, showing the beauty of his outcomes but not his actions, at the cost of billions upon billions of innocent men, women, and children that are not part of this situation, potentially even all life on Earth as we know it. Flock is doing a great job getting everyone under this umbrella. Honestly, kind of scary. But Jean isn't going to let that happen. As Yelena and Anya is about to be executed, Jean goes to shoot them, but in reality, he's setting off a signal. The cart titan rolls up, Flock gets pushed out of the way, Jean, Yelena, and Anya both get eaten by the cart titan and then taken back to a certain location. They actually live from that. You then jump to Armin and everyone else meeting up with Mikasa, and they have this collective cart with weapons and food, and everyone's just joining together at this point, and they reference someone in a tower. I don't necessarily know who's in the tower. I don't know if it's meant to be a reflection from the future, or if it's meant to be some sort of royal person, or if it's meant to be Historia or something like that. I don't necessarily know. It was just one singular panel that they went ahead and pointed out, so someone's watching this all unfold most likely without any care in the world. I don't know who this person is. I don't know if it's going to implement some path futuristic stuff, or if it's someone that we haven't seen for quite a bit of time, or maybe just a general person. I'm not entirely sure. So to end off the chapter, we have two groups that are already in conjunction with one another, that are working together but are in two separate locations. First, you have Levi and Hanji's group, which is the Card Titan, the General, Yelena, Anya, and Jean. And then on the other hand, you have Armin's group, with Annie and Mikasa and everyone else, but they also get in contact with Reiner, and now Reiner is within the group. And they end off the chapter with this pretty detailed expression panel, and that they're going to save the world. Now, just to reflect on both groups at the moment, there is so much power within both of these groups. I didn't expect a couple of these characters to be within there. Just to put in perspective how much power is truly here. We have Hanji, who is extremely intelligent. We have the general, who's also pretty intelligent. We have Levi, who is an absolute monster of a powerhouse and an anomaly. We have Mikasa, who is also a monster and an anomaly. We have the remaining Titans, completely all against Eren now, all working together, mind you. Every single Titan that is left is now collectively working together and opposing Eren in some way, shape, or form. The only person that is missing is Zeke. Zeke is the only character and the only Titan that is out of place. We don't know where he is, we don't know what he's doing, unless the person up in that tower was Zeke, but I don't know how he would have got there. There is so many people right now that are together, that are trying to save the world, that are trying to stop Eren, his own people, which funny enough, Marley and the people from it, Khan Titan, the general, Anya even though he's more so orientated to helping his own nation, and Eldians are working together. For the first time within the story, Marlians and Eldians are joining hands to put aside their differences to stop a global threat, to stop Eren Yeager from doing all of this. This doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to create a whole new relationship between the two because they're working together to take down a common threat, but it is a start. It's a very impactful start, and depending on how this situation unfolds, how they're going to approach Eren with the information that they have, with the knowledge that they have, with Eren turning into a massive founding Titan that is obnoxiously huge, they have a good chance to do a lot of damage. They have a good chance to stop Eren in some way, shape, or form and show the world that the only way this was possible was Marlians and Eldians joining hands. It's not necessarily as political as that or as official as that, and it probably never will be, but it is a start. Could flare up into something else, or it may not flare up into anything at all, but they're working together, and that's what's important right now. And I'm extremely excited to see where we go from here. Who else gets added into the mix? Where on earth is Historia? Is she still chilling? Is she on the farm just kicking back and relaxing, watching everything be demolished? And who was that random person in the tower? I, for one, am extremely excited to see Levi absolutely body Zeke once again, once and for all, actually. But I'm also excited to see what plan they put in motion. There's obviously something here that we don't know about, that they're extremely confident to go up against Eren and somewhat slow him down, potentially stop him, potentially change his mind. Whatever option they go with, they have something there, most likely. I'm excited to see what it is. So with that being said, that is basically it. Let me know how you feel about the chapter. Did you love it? Did you hate it? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But I'm actually going to end the video off here. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.